Hello and welcome guys, my name is Lewis from setupforvolleyball.com and today I want to go over the 4-2 rotations for the serve-receive team. If you're looking for the 4-2 rotations when you're the serving team, that's in a separate video that you can see on my channel if you'd like to navigate there. If you enjoy the video, please do give it a thumbs up as it really helps. If you have any comments, please drop them below and I'll be sure to get back to you. And lastly, if you enjoy content like this, please do consider subscribing as we drop regular content like this and will be for the foreseeable future. Without further ado, let's get into the rotational guide. Thanks.
Now, the 4-2 volleyball formation is primarily used in beginner levels and lower levels just because it's very simple and easy to learn. There are some other advantages which I'll cover in a second, but just so you're aware, the 4-2 formation, basically the 4 is the number of hitters that you have on the court at any one time, and the 2 is the number of setters that you have on the court at any one time. So the main advantages to the 4-2 is, like I said, it's very easy to learn the rotations. There's only 3 rotations that you actually need to learn because you have a front court setter and you have a setter that's in the back row, and when that back row setter gets to the front court, he becomes a primary setter, and the front court setter that's gone to the back row becomes a defender. Um, so another advantage of this setup is that it's generally pretty easy for the setters to know exactly where they're going to set because they've only really got 2 options. Because as I said, the player in the front row is always the setter, so you have 2 hitters, which would be your middle and your outside hitter. Another good advantage is you can have a lot more passes in the serve receive if you need them. So because you've always got your setter in the front row in the setting position, you can actually sometimes even push 5 players back into the serve receive, which if you're struggling in your serve receive can be an advantage, although personally I think it's more of a hindrance when you're trying to pass out of a clustered back line because there's a lot of indecisive movements from other players around you and you don't know who's taking the ball, who isn't. So generally I think stick with the 3 back row passes, but obviously if your coach thinks differently, go with what they say. And the last advantage is a really good introduction to teaching new players how and more importantly why they rotate. So in volleyball, obviously, we always want to try and get to our preferred position, so that's why we rotate into them positions to give ourselves the best advantage against the opponents. So learning the 4-2 rotation, when people say that rotations are difficult, I personally disagree. I don't think that the rotations are difficult. I think that knowing where to stand in a serve receive is difficult because when you're rotating, you always want to rotate back to the same position. You only have 2 positions on the court that you need to worry about. That's the position that you play when you're front court and the position that you play when you're back court. So when people say that rotating is difficult, rotating itself isn't because you're only going to the same 2 spots on the court every time, with a few exceptions, but that's generally what will happen. So let's get into the 4-2 rotation. So what you'll see popping up right now is this is an actual lineup sheet. So this is what your coach would have to submit before each set. So what this indicates is what position each of the players on the court is playing. If you don't understand what these mean, this is the actual numbering of the zones. So what it would look like on court would be like this. So position 1 is your back right, and on this occasion it would be your middle. Position 2 is your setter, 3 is your outside, 4 is your middle, 5 is your second setter, and position 6 is your second outside. So this is the back court, this is the front court, as indicated by the net here. So if we were going into a game and this was our starting lineup, this is a common starting lineup. Obviously it could be set up differently as your coach decides. But if we were to start in this rotation 1, or sorry, stack 1, so a stack would be where you would line up when you're receiving in volleyball, would look something like this. So if we refer back to the last picture, you had your setter here, outside here, middle here. These 3 back players will stay the same for the time being. So you would want to keep your setter in the position that they're going to set from, obviously because they are going to take the second contact, or hopefully they're going to take the second contact. So if they can already be stood in the position they need to be, it makes their life a lot easier. So what you would want to do is you'd want to stack your outside and your middle next to each other. Now the main reason you want to do this is because you want these players to have the shortest distance to get to their natural position. So if I pull up the next thing, which will show you when and how you'd rotate. So obviously, so it's not too clustered, I've cut off the rest of the words, but obviously you can refer to this picture if you need to know what position is what. So as I said, your setter would stay the same. Your middle would want to rotate into the middle here, so they're ready to hit. And your outside hitter or wing hitter would want to rotate up to here again, so they're ready to hit. Now, admittedly, you probably wouldn't run round someone like this. You would probably just stack a bit further down here, so your outside can almost effectively stay where they are, and just look at the setter, and your middle can be ready here. So after they've rotated, this would be sort of the general basis of where they would be standing. So just to clarify, these back row players don't matter that much, and to be honest, coaches may have you line up differently depending on what they prefer. I've always preferred an outside player. I've always preferred an outside player in the middle back here because generally outside players are good hitters, and therefore if you're struggling and your pass comes back here somewhere, the setter can just pop the ball up and the middle can still attack in what's called a pipe hit. So I've always preferred an outside player to be deep middle, but lots of coaches will put the middle player at the back or even swap them out for a libero. So I wouldn't worry too much about this for now because your coach may have you line up differently. So I'd only worry about these front court players for now. So as I said, your outside will want to come to this position, your middle will want to come to this position as shown here and here. So if we were just to run through the play, this is how we would start before they serve. As the serve comes over, if your outside player here passes it, just for an example, the second that ball crosses the net, and you know that it's not going to be required for any of these players to touch the ball, they can start rotating. Once the serve comes over the net, ball hits the outside, players are rotating now. The second this outside here passes the ball, this is the positions you would adopt. Ball goes into the setter, players are ready to attack. The setter can set the middle here, or he can set the outside here. And that is rotation 1. So moving on to rotation 2, obviously we've all rotated one spot. So your setter that was at position 2 is now at position 1, and your middle has gone from 1 to 6, and so on and so forth. So now your setter that now is at position 1 that was at position 6 is now in the back row and is no longer a setter. The setter that is now moved to position 4 is become the front row setter. So this is how we would line up when we are expecting to receive the serve. Now again, we want to get everybody to their natural positions, so we've got the setter, the middle and the outside all stood very, very close to each other. Now, just a side note, some people may put the middle behind these two, just so that the middle is stood in the best position they need to be, ready to hit. But you could also make the argument that if any of these players overpass and the attacking side want to hit the first ball, then having a middle here who's ready to block might be a good idea. So in rotation 2, this is the lineup, and this is how we would stack. So again, you've got your middle, setter, and outside all nice and clustered together so they can easily get to the positions that they need to rotate to. So this is something like what the rotations would look like. You'd have your middle staying in the same place, you'd have your outside player running through this gap to get ready to hit over here, and you'd have your setter wanting to rotate round these guys, or through the middle, however you would like to do it, into standing in position 2 so that they are ready to set the middle or the outside. Again, I've made the outside rotating into the middle and the middle rotating to position 5 just because that's how I like to line up the back row. So again, once they've rotated, it would look something similar to what we saw before, and that would be the setter up here ready to set, middle in hitting position, outside in hitting position, and the back row again ready. So again, if we just run through that play, this is while we're waiting for the serve to come over. As the player serves the ball and it reaches the net, as long as none of these three are going to be needing to take a pass, they can begin to rotate, like so. Just to confirm, obviously, these people wouldn't be rotating until after they've passed the ball. So the second the ball hits the net, these three players will stay in the same positions until one of them has passed. Once they've passed, they know they're then safe to rotate. So as the ball's coming over, let's say that this middle player here is taking the first pass. As the ball reaches this first player, these three will begin to rotate. Once this player passes the ball, as he's passed it, the setter will be ready and waiting in position 2. The middle will be here and the outside will be here, ready to hit the ball as required. And that is rotation 2. So onto the last rotation that we need to know. Again, everyone has moved one place clockwise. So the setter who before was at position 1 is now position 6, and so on and so forth. So in this particular rotation, obviously the setter's in the middle of the court, and the only player that's really out of position is this middle player at position 2. So what we would do is stack near position 2. So if I move on to the next one, we've got these two stacking again. And the only player that really needs to worry about rotating is the middle player. So you're stacking near position 2 here, so the setter is already, the setter ideally needs to take 1 or 2 steps this direction to get ready to set the ball, whereas the middle can worry about just stepping in across the court, ready to stand in the middle position here. So once these players have rotated, it would again look something like this. Obviously you've seen this image 3 times, because like I said, rotating isn't difficult, because you always rotate to the same spot on the court. When the setter's front court, all it needs to worry about is getting to this position. When the setter's back court, all it needs to worry about is getting to this position. So it's not particularly difficult to rotate, it's just knowing where you need to stand during the serve receive and the best way of rotating to the position you need to get to. So that pretty much sums it up, to be honest, guys. Like I said, there's only 3 rotations you need to worry about. Hopefully this has been helpful for you guys. What I will do is I've got an article on volleyball.com about these rotations, and at the bottom of the article is some downloadable guides which have got all 3 rotations. So if you're still unclear on anything, just click on the link, it'll be in the description. You can go to the website and you can download the guide for free, and you can take it with you to your next training so you don't get these rotations wrong. Okay, thanks a lot. See you guys later. Bye.